What if I told you that there's a Bible with 88 books, 22 more than the one most Christians read today? And what if I told you that this Bible was banned, hidden, and dismissed by early church leaders? This isn't just a lost scroll or a forgotten manuscript. It's the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, a sacred text that holds stories, prophecies, and teachings that were excluded from the traditional Christian canon. Inside its pages, you'll find books like the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees, ancient writings that delve into cosmic battles, fallen angels, and prophecies about the end of the world. These texts reveal a world of hidden knowledge, mysteries that early church leaders deemed too controversial, too dangerous, or simply too esoteric to include in the Bible as we know it today. But what if these books hold secrets that could change how we understand faith, prophecy, and the spiritual battle between good and evil? In this video, we'll explore why these texts were banned, why they remain sacred in Ethiopia, and what hidden truths they reveal. Could these lost books of the Ethiopian Bible hold the key to understanding the mysteries of the spiritual world, the fate of humanity, and God's ultimate plan for the end of days? Join us as we uncover the forbidden knowledge of the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible and the divine wisdom that has remained hidden for centuries. The Ethiopian Orthodox Bible stands apart as one of the most extraordinary sacred texts in the world. It contains 88 books, 22 more than the standard Christian Bible that many are familiar with today. But these aren't just additional chapters or minor writings. They are profound, mysterious, and mystical texts filled with ancient knowledge that, for reasons still debated, early Christian leaders chose to exclude. Why were these books banned? What hidden truths did they reveal? And why were they deemed too controversial to be part of the Bible as we know it? These excluded books are not merely historical footnotes. They are powerful texts, like the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and others that delve into the supernatural, uncovering cosmic battles between good and evil, the story of fallen angels, and divine prophecies that continue to shape spiritual thought. Within these pages we find tales of the Nephilim, giants who were the offspring of fallen angels, and the ongoing war in the spiritual realm. These writings speak to a reality beyond our earthly experience, where angels descend from heaven, secrets are unveiled, and humanity stands on the brink of divine intervention. But why were these sacred texts excluded in the first place? Why would early church leaders, particularly during the pivotal moments like the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, make the deliberate decision to set them aside? The answer lies in the content of these books. The early church feared their power. These writings delve into speculative theology, ideas about the heavens, the afterlife, and the mysterious roles of angels that were not fully aligned with the church's growing need for a unified, simplified doctrine. Their close ties to Jewish traditions also made them controversial, as the early Christian church was distancing itself from Judaism and defining its own identity. These books not only challenged the unified doctrine of the early church, but they also introduced ideas that could provoke theological questions that the church wasn't prepared to answer. What role do fallen angels play in human affairs? How do prophecies of cosmic battles impact our understanding of good and evil? These were questions explored in the Book of Enoch and other excluded texts. The church, fearing that such topics might lead believers into dangerous speculation, chose to hide these books from the public. And yet, while much of the Western world erased these books from its canon, Ethiopia preserved them. In the mountains and monasteries of this ancient Christian nation, these sacred texts were never lost. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church saw them as essential to their faith, maintaining a tradition that kept these powerful mystical works alive for centuries. These books, shrouded in mystery for most, offer a glimpse into spiritual truths that many have forgotten. The Ethiopian Orthodox Bible is a hidden treasure, a collection of texts that takes us beyond the familiar stories and lessons of the Standard Bible. It invites us to explore deeper spiritual mysteries, of angels and fallen beings, of prophecies that stretch across the ages, and of divine battles fought in the realms we cannot see. For centuries, these books have been kept apart from mainstream Christianity, but now their secrets are being rediscovered, challenging us to rethink what we know about the Bible and the spiritual forces at play in our world. Among the most fascinating and mysterious of the banned books are the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and Maccabees. These texts explore profound and otherworldly topics, stories of fallen angels, the Nephilim, and the cosmic struggle between the forces of good and evil. But why were these themes deemed too dangerous for the early Christian canon? Could it be that their mystical and esoteric nature was considered too controversial, too powerful, to be embraced by the early church? The Book of Enoch stands out as one of the most extraordinary pieces of ancient writing. It tells the story of the Watchers, angels who descended from heaven to interact with humanity. These fallen angels not only shared forbidden knowledge with mankind, but they also took human wives, giving birth to the Nephilim, giant beings whose very existence disrupted the natural order. This narrative dives deep into the struggle between divine forces, corruption, and the ultimate judgment that followed. The themes of cosmic warfare, angelic rebellion, and divine punishment found in the Book of Enoch paint a picture of a world far beyond our everyday experience, where the boundaries between heaven and earth blur. Next, we turn to the Book of Jubilees, another ancient text that expands on biblical stories with startling detail. Known as the Little Genesis, the Book of Jubilees recounts the creation of the world and the history of humanity in a way that differs from the standard biblical narrative. It introduces celestial beings, angels that play a key role in guiding humanity and even dictating the very timeline of sacred history. But it also delves into themes of divine judgment, the consequences of sin, and a cosmic timeline dictated by God's eternal plan. The Book of Jubilees offers a perspective that emphasizes a higher order to the universe, one where every event on earth echoes in the heavenly realm. Finally, we come to Maccabees, a collection of books that recount the Jewish revolt against Greek oppression. These texts, revered by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, highlight themes of courage, faith, and divine intervention in the midst of political and military struggle. The Maccabean revolt is depicted as more than just a historical event. It is shown as a moment where God's chosen people fight not only for their survival, but for their faith. The battle between the Maccabees and their oppressors is not just about the clash of armies, but about the cosmic struggle between good and evil. In the context of early Christianity, these themes could have been seen as dangerously empowering, suggesting that divine intervention in human affairs is not just possible but inevitable when faith is at stake. So why were these books left out of the standard Christian Bible? Was it their mystical nature, their focus on angels, supernatural beings, and cosmic battles that challenged the early church's effort to build a unified doctrine? These writings dared to explore realms of spirituality that questioned the boundaries between heaven and earth, human and divine, good and evil. Their themes of rebellion in the heavens and divine judgment on earth raised questions that the early church may not have been ready to answer. Preserved within the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, These texts remind us that the spiritual world is far more complex than we might imagine. The Book of Enoch, Jubilees, and Maccabees open windows into a universe where angels walk the earth, cosmic forces battle for control, and human faith can alter the course of history. They challenge us to consider a broader, more mystical understanding of the Bible, one that embraces the mysteries of the unseen and the divine forces that shape our world. The Council of Nicaea in 325 A.D. was a defining moment in the history of Christianity, one that would forever change how the Bible was shaped and understood. At this council, church leaders gathered to debate, unify, and define the core beliefs of the Christian faith. But amidst these discussions, a decision was made that still echoes today. Certain texts were removed from the Bible, cast aside, because they were seen as too speculative, too mystical, or too closely tied to Jewish traditions. But the question remains, were these decisions made to promote unity within the church, or to silence knowledge that could have challenged the authority of its leaders? One of the key reasons these texts were excluded was their speculative theology. Books like the Book of Enoch and Jubilees delved into the supernatural in ways that made early church leaders uneasy. They explored angelic hierarchies, the mysteries of the cosmos, and divine interactions with humanity that went beyond what the church wanted to embrace. These ideas, though fascinating, were seen as too controversial, raising questions about the nature of God, creation, and the unseen world that might lead believers down paths the church wasn't ready to endorse. But it wasn't just the speculative nature of these texts that concerned the council. Many of these books had deep roots in Jewish tradition, a fact that the early Christian leaders found problematic as they sought to distance Christianity from its Jewish origins. The Book of Enoch, for example, held significant influence within early Jewish mysticism and described events that paralleled themes in the Old Testament, particularly regarding divine judgment and the role of angels. For a church aiming to define a uniquely Christian identity, the strong ties to Jewish traditions in these texts may have been seen as a threat to that separation. The Council of Nicaea's decisions weren't just about theology. They were also about control. As the church grew in power and influence, its leaders understood the importance of creating a unified doctrine, a single authoritative version of the Bible that would guide the faith for centuries to come. The exclusion of certain texts, especially those that explored spiritual realms, angels, or the afterlife in ways that could not easily be controlled, helped consolidate the church's authority. By removing these books, the church limited what believers could explore and question about the mysteries of the universe, ensuring that only certain interpretations of faith remained in the mainstream. So were the decisions made at Nicaea simply about unifying the church, or were they also about silencing dangerous knowledge? The exclusion of these books may have helped solidify the early church's power, but it also left behind a wealth of mystical knowledge, hidden from the eyes of most believers. Books like Enoch and Jubilees were more than just religious texts. They were doorways to understanding the universe in ways that challenged the boundaries of traditional theology. By removing these books, the early church may have also closed off access to profound spiritual insights. Yet while many churches abandoned these books, Ethiopia preserved them. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church continued to safeguard these ancient texts, recognizing their value and spiritual significance. In doing so, they protected a treasure trove of knowledge that invites us to explore the mysteries of the divine in ways that were nearly forgotten by the rest of the Christian world. Ethiopia's connection to Christianity runs deeper than most people realize. Long before European colonization, Ethiopia embraced Christianity in the 4th century AD, becoming one of the first nations to do so. The Kingdom of Aksum, one of the most powerful empires of its time, not only adopted Christianity as its state religion, but also developed its own unique spiritual identity, one that has endured for centuries. While many nations fell under the sway of Western influence, Ethiopia remained spiritually independent. Its early adoption of Christianity set it apart as a beacon of faith in Africa, creating a legacy of religious devotion and preservation. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, unshaken by the pressures of European rule, held tightly to its ancient traditions. This spiritual autonomy allowed Ethiopia to safeguard texts and practices that were lost to other parts of the world. The Ethiopian Church's story is not just about survival, it's about preservation. While Western Christian leaders were debating which texts to include in the Bible and which to cast aside, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church held fast to its spiritual heritage. The Ethiopian Bible, with its 88 books, represents a living testament to that commitment. For over a millennium, Ethiopian Christians have carried forward the words of their sacred texts, unbroken, unaltered, and untouched by outside forces. This unique spiritual legacy is intertwined with Ethiopia's cultural and national identity. The Christian faith was not just a religion in Ethiopia, it was part of the fabric of the nation itself. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church played a key role in uniting the people, serving as a spiritual guide and protector of the ancient knowledge contained within its scriptures. The Church's independence from the West allowed it to nurture a closer connection to both Jewish practices and early Christian traditions, giving Ethiopia a distinctive place in the history of Christianity. In Ethiopia, Christianity was not influenced by the decisions of Western church councils, nor was it shaped by the politics of Europe. Instead, it remained rooted in the traditions of early Christianity and the ancient Jewish faith. Ethiopia's spiritual independence allowed it to preserve and maintain texts like the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and other sacred writings, texts that were deemed too controversial or dangerous by other Christian leaders. As the centuries passed, Ethiopia continued to protect these texts, preserving an unbroken link to the earliest days of the Christian faith. The result is a treasure trove of spiritual wisdom that gives us a glimpse into a version of Christianity that has remained untainted by the outside world. A version that holds keys to understanding the divine in ways many have forgotten. Ethiopia's Christian roots are not just a relic of the past. They are a living, breathing testament to the enduring power of faith and the preservation of sacred knowledge. And as we continue to uncover the truths hidden in these ancient texts, we realize that Ethiopia holds a unique place in the spiritual story of humanity. One of the most captivating and mysterious legends in Ethiopian tradition is the story of the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon. According to Ethiopian lore, their union produced a son named Menelik I, who would go on to change the course of Ethiopian history. But it wasn't just a royal lineage that Menelik inherited. He brought something far more sacred back to Ethiopia, the Ark of the Covenant. This ancient legend tells of Menelik's journey from Israel to Ethiopia, carrying with him the most sacred object in Jewish tradition, the Ark that held the stone tablets of the 10 Commandments given to Moses by God. This powerful relic, believed to house the very presence of God, was brought to Ethiopia and became the foundation of the nation's divine mission and spiritual inheritance. Ethiopian tradition holds that this event was not just a historical moment. It was a spiritual turning point that linked Ethiopia directly to God's chosen people. With the ark in their possession, Ethiopians believe they became the new guardians of God's covenant, a role that has defined the spiritual destiny of the nation ever since. This divine mission gave Ethiopia a unique identity, setting it apart as a nation blessed with a sacred responsibility. The ark is said to have been housed in Ethiopia ever since, and to this day, many believe it resides within a sacred church in the town of Aksum. Ethiopian monks guard the ark with reverence, continuing a tradition that has persisted for thousands of years, with no one allowed to see it except for a single chosen guardian. This belief reinforces Ethiopia's place as not only a spiritual nation, but a protector of one of the holiest relics in biblical history. This legend of the Ark of the Covenant is more than just a story. It represents Ethiopia's deep spiritual connection to both the Jewish and Christian faiths. The Queen of Sheba's journey, King Solomon's wisdom, and Menelik's divine mission gave Ethiopia a role that transcends mere history. It positioned the nation as a spiritual beacon, a land where the presence of God resides through his most sacred artifact. For centuries, Ethiopian Christians have viewed their nation as a chosen land, uniquely entrusted with safeguarding the Ark. This belief has shaped Ethiopian culture, faith, and identity, linking the nation's destiny to the biblical narrative. The legend of the Ark also reinforces Ethiopia's claim to spiritual legitimacy, standing as a reminder of their ancient connection to the lineage of David, Solomon, and the people of Israel. As we trace the legacy of the Ark of the Covenant from Israel to Ethiopia, we uncover not only a story of spiritual inheritance but also a powerful symbol of faith that has shaped the identity of a nation for thousands of years. Ethiopia's connection to the Ark continues to be a source of pride, faith, and mystery, reminding the world of its unique place in the unfolding spiritual history of humanity. While much of the world moved forward, adapting and altering religious practices over the centuries, Ethiopia stood apart. Its unique spiritual independence allowed it to preserve sacred texts and traditions that were lost or changed elsewhere. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, with its distinctive history, has maintained a closer connection to both Jewish practices and ancient Christian traditions, a connection that has endured through the ages. In the early centuries of Christianity, the Ethiopian Church forged its own path, free from the influence of the Western world and colonial powers. This spiritual independence gave Ethiopia the freedom to preserve traditions that were discarded or altered by other Christian communities. While the broader Christian world removed certain texts and moved away from many Jewish customs, Ethiopia held fast, keeping these ancient practices alive in their own Bible and religious ceremonies. One of the most remarkable aspects of Ethiopia's religious heritage is its preservation of Jewish customs. While Christianity elsewhere distanced itself from its Jewish roots, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church maintained traditions that echo back to the days of ancient Israel. From observing dietary laws to celebrating festivals like Passover, these practices connect Ethiopia's faith to the earliest followers of God's covenant. In Ethiopia, one can still witness rituals that closely mirror those described in the Old Testament. At the same time, Ethiopia also embraced the message of Christ, blending ancient Jewish practices with the profound truths of Christianity. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church kept alive early Christian traditions that many other churches abandoned. In their worship, we find traces of the first Christian communities, early prayers, hymns, and even church architecture that harks back to the days of the apostles. By preserving these texts and traditions, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church has offered the world a glimpse into the ancient roots of both Judaism and Christianity. Their Bible, which includes texts banned or forgotten in the West, provides a spiritual bridge between the Old and New Testaments. The Ethiopian Church's rituals are not just acts of worship. They are living connections to a time when the Jewish and Christian faiths were more intertwined, when the practices of ancient Israel flowed seamlessly into the teachings of Christ. This remarkable continuity has not only shaped Ethiopia's religious identity, but has also served as a reminder to the world of the deep spiritual connection between Judaism and Christianity. In Ethiopia, the faithful continue to honor God in ways that reflect the richness of both traditions, standing as a testimony to the spiritual heritage they've protected for centuries. While many religious traditions have changed over time, Ethiopia has remained steadfast in its dedication to preserving the sacred. In its churches, one can witness the blending of ancient Jewish customs with the profound message of the gospel, revealing the depth and richness of its spiritual legacy. As we look at Ethiopia today, we see not only a country with a unique religious history, but also a nation that holds one of the last living connections to the ancient world of the Bible. Among the books that were excluded from the standard Christian Bible, some were considered too dangerous to be included in the sacred canon. These texts were thought to challenge the early church's desire for a unified doctrine. Their speculative themes, dealing with angels, the afterlife, and divine judgment, were seen as opening doors to interpretations that could disrupt the order and control the early church sought to establish. Books like the Book of Enoch, Jubilees, and others presented visions of the spiritual world that went beyond the accepted teachings of the time. These writings explored mysteries that the early church considered too controversial or even heretical. Stories of the Watchers, fallen angels who descended to earth, and the Nephilim, their offspring who were giants, raised unsettling questions about the nature of divine beings and humanity's interaction with them. The church feared that these narratives could lead to confusion or even rebellion against their authority. Perhaps most threatening to the early church were the book's teachings about the end times, divine judgment, and the afterlife. These texts offered perspectives that could diverge from the church's developing doctrines on heaven, hell, and salvation. The church was in the process of shaping a unified theology, one that could bring consistency and order to its followers. But the banned books presented alternate views, visions of the afterlife, spiritual realms, and the battle between good and evil that didn't fit neatly into this emerging orthodoxy. In the Book of Enoch, for example, the Watchers reveal forbidden knowledge to humanity, teaching them skills and secrets they were not meant to know. This sharing of hidden knowledge led to the corruption of mankind, a theme that worried early church leaders. If these ideas were widely embraced, they feared it could encourage people to seek knowledge outside the church's teachings, ultimately undermining their control. Many of these banned texts didn't just explore mystical and theological themes. They also carried with them elements of Jewish traditions, which the early Christian church sought to distance itself from as it forged its own identity. These books, with their deep connections to Jewish mysticism, presented an uncomfortable reminder of Christianity's Jewish roots, a link that the early church wanted to minimize as it expanded its influence among Gentiles. Ultimately, the decision to ban these books was not just about theology. It was about control over doctrine, over belief, and over the spiritual knowledge that was accessible to the early Christian world. The church leaders of the time saw these texts as dangerous because they could inspire new ways of thinking, new ways of interpreting God's plan, and new challenges to their authority. By excluding them, they hoped to keep the focus on their carefully constructed vision of Christianity. But in Ethiopia, these dangerous texts were not destroyed or forgotten. They were preserved, offering us today a glimpse into the hidden mysteries of the early spiritual world. Mysteries that continue to provoke, challenge, and inspire those willing to explore the forbidden knowledge of the past. When European colonizers set their sights on Ethiopia, particularly during Italy's aggressive attempts to dominate the region, they encountered more than just a military force. They faced a deep and resilient spiritual foundation that had been woven into Ethiopian society for centuries. The conflict wasn't merely about political control or territorial conquest. It was also a battle for spiritual supremacy. At the heart of this resistance was the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, a symbol of Ethiopia's spiritual heritage and independence, containing sacred texts that had been preserved for millennia. For the Ethiopians, their Bible was more than a religious text. It was a symbol of national pride and spiritual freedom, a direct link to their divine mission that stretched back to the days of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. The preserved texts in their Bible, which included mystical and esoteric books like Enoch and Jubilees, represented a spiritual legacy that could not be conquered by foreign powers. European colonizers, particularly the Italians, sought to impose not only political control but also religious dominance, attempting to replace Ethiopia's unique Christian heritage with Western doctrines. But the Ethiopians were not easily swayed. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church had remained spiritually independent from Western Christianity for centuries, having developed its own unique traditions, liturgies, and interpretations of the Bible. This independence was reflected in their sacred texts, books that had been long rejected by the Western Church, but preserved in Ethiopia as part of their spiritual identity. The Ethiopians saw these ancient scriptures as essential to their divine purpose, and they refused to let foreign powers strip them of this heritage. During Italy's attempts to colonize Ethiopia, the Ethiopian Bible became a powerful symbol of resistance. It wasn't just a fight for political sovereignty. It was a struggle to protect a spiritual legacy that was tied directly to their sense of identity and purpose. The Bible, with its extra books and preserved texts, stood in stark contrast to the European version of Christianity, which had long excluded these writings. For the Ethiopians, their Bible was a testament to their enduring faith and their role in God's divine plan. The Italian colonizers underestimated the depth of Ethiopia's spiritual roots. Though they might have had advanced weapons and greater numbers, they could not overcome the spiritual fortitude of a nation that saw itself as divinely chosen. The Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, with its preserved ancient texts, was a constant reminder of their divine mission, a mission that had withstood the test of time, untouched by Western influence. Through their Bible and their unwavering faith, the Ethiopians resisted not just foreign invasion, but the loss of their spiritual identity. Their story is a reminder that some things, like faith, tradition, and divine purpose, are worth fighting for, no matter the odds. The Ethiopian Orthodox Bible remains a testament to that enduring spirit, a symbol of a nation that refused to be conquered, both physically and spiritually. The Book of Enoch is perhaps one of the most controversial and intriguing texts ever excluded from the standard Christian Bible. Its pages hold narratives that were too bold, too mysterious, and too unsettling for early church leaders to accept. But within its words lies a profound insight into the spiritual struggles of the ancient world and the cosmic forces at play in the realms of both angels and men. The Book of Enoch is not just an ancient relic. It's a key to understanding early Jewish and Christian thought, offering a dramatic narrative of corruption, judgment, and warfare beyond the physical realm. The story of the Watchers, fallen angels who descended to earth, is central to the Book of Enoch. These angels, once part of God's divine court, defied their celestial purpose by taking human wives and imparting forbidden knowledge to humanity. This knowledge of warfare, magic, and hidden powers unleashed chaos and destruction. From this union came the Nephilim, the mighty and violent offspring of these fallen angels and human women. The rise of the Nephilim signaled a dark age of corruption where humanity was led astray and the natural order was broken. The Book of Enoch details not only the fall of these angels, but also the devastating consequences of their actions. As humanity succumbed to violence, greed, and immorality under the influence of the Nephilim, God's judgment became inevitable. Enoch, a righteous man and the great-grandfather of Noah, was given visions of this cosmic battle. He witnessed the growing corruption on earth and the approaching divine retribution. But this is not just a story of judgment. It's a story of redemption and the ultimate restoration of order. The Book of Enoch describes how God sent the archangels Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael to bind the fallen angels and cast them into eternal darkness. The flood, as recounted in Genesis, was part of this divine punishment, cleansing the earth of the Nephilim and their corrupting influence. The Watchers' fall and humanity's redemption serve as a reminder that no matter how dark the times, God's justice will prevail. The Book of Enoch presents a vivid and unsettling account of how the spiritual and physical worlds intertwine, how heavenly rebellion can lead to earthly devastation. It provides a glimpse into early Jewish and Christian beliefs about angels, sin, and the ultimate judgment of both the righteous and the wicked. Yet despite its profound insights, the Book of Enoch was banned from the official Bible, its revelations deemed too speculative and too challenging for early Christian doctrine. Today, the Book of Enoch remains preserved in the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, offering us a window into a world where angels and men once walked together, and where the consequences of that union echo throughout history. Its cosmic vision of good versus evil, divine judgment, and redemption continues to captivate those who seek to understand the hidden mysteries of the Bible. The Ethiopian Orthodox Bible is more than just a historical artifact. It is a treasure trove of spiritual insights that have been preserved through centuries of tradition and devotion. Within its pages, we find profound teachings about the hidden spiritual realms, the role of angels, and prophecies about the end times that challenge us to see the Bible in a new light. These texts, kept safe from the hands of those who sought to suppress them, offer us a glimpse into early Jewish and Christian theology that the standard Bible does not. Among the preserved books are writings that delve into the unseen world of angels, revealing their influence and roles in both heavenly and earthly affairs. The Book of Enoch, for instance, takes us deep into the workings of these celestial beings, both those who remained faithful to God and those who fell from grace. The spiritual significance of these texts goes beyond a simple narrative. They provide insights into the structure of the spiritual world and offer warnings of the dangers that await when humanity crosses boundaries not meant to be crossed. The focus on angels and the spiritual realm found in these ancient texts is more direct and detailed than what we see in the standard Christian Bible. They speak of the cosmic battle between good and evil, where angels are not just messengers, but active participants in the unfolding of God's divine plan. These teachings remind us that the physical world we see is only part of the story. There are hidden forces at play, shaping the destiny of nations and the fate of souls. But the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible doesn't just stop at spiritual warfare and angels. It also provides deeper insights into the end times, offering prophecies about the future that paint a vivid picture of the trials and tribulations humanity will face. These prophecies challenge us to think beyond the material world and reflect on the ultimate fate of humanity as written in the stars and heavenly realms. The Ethiopian Bible's emphasis on the hidden spiritual realms and the end times invites us to explore the mysteries of faith in a way that the standard Bible might not. It calls upon believers to seek a deeper understanding of God's plan, both for this world and the next, and challenges us to reflect on the unseen forces that guide our lives. Preserved through centuries of devotion and safeguarded by the Ethiopian Church, these texts offer a window into the profound spiritual insights of early Jewish and Christian theology. Insights that, for many, have remained hidden for far too long. They remind us that the Bible is not just a record of human history, but a guide to the unseen, spiritual dimensions that still shape our existence today. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the fascinating history and mysteries of the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible. These excluded books reveal profound spiritual insights that challenge how we understand early Christianity and the Bible. If you found this video enlightening, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Bible Stories official channel, and explore more hidden truths of the Bible with us.